Okay, so good morning, everybody. I just wanted to welcome you to today's presentation. A couple of housekeeping items just as we begin. If you could just keep yourselves on mute as the presentation is going on, and then feel free, you can unmute yourself and ask Amy any questions that you have. Or if you feel more comfortable and want to use a text chat, you could do that and I'll watch that and I'll relay any questions to Amy that there are. So once again, welcome to today's presentation on doing market research at the library. I wanted to welcome back our guest speaker, Amy Ongaro, and she is over at the Thunder Bay Public Library right now. So thanks, Amy, for coming in and talking about this.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me, and thank you all for being here today. I'm just going to share my screen so you can see what I am looking at here. All right, you can see that now, I hope. Yes?
Yes, we can see it. And then just so you know, it's not like a presentation mode. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. All right. So I know what you're thinking, like market research at the library doesn't make a lot of sense. Not the first place you'd think of when doing market research. But we do have a lot of really great tools and ways to help you get information to help grow and expand your business. And like Lori said, if you have any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat or come off mute. There'll be a couple points in the presentation where I'll like ask for your feedback or ask you guys questions. So feel free to chime in. All right, so just to get started, some of the outcomes of this presentation is you'll gain market research understanding and know the services available to use from the Thunder Bay Public Library and gain a basic understanding of how to use them. Lori mentioned to me earlier that some people aren't in Thunder Bay itself, and that's okay because some of these products are available at other libraries. And if not, I will have my email at the end of the presentation, and we can chat through email and we'll figure out a way to help you get the information you need. And hopefully you'll gain some confidence in how to go about conducting market research for your business and know where to look for help. So it's one of those things where you don't need to know everything, but if you know where to look for the information, that's half the battle. All right, so to get started, I want to ask you guys some questions. So how many of you have done market research before? You can use your virtual hand in the Zoom or in the chat. Okay, we're getting a thumbs up. Glad to hear it. And have any of you used any market research tools? Or if you have, like, where do you usually start your searches? Just want to see where everybody's at. Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything in the chat either, so I guess you're all in a good place.
Sorry, there is, Elle said not really, just asked around or did little surveys.
Oh, yeah, the little
Yeah.
surveys, though, is a really great way to start. So let's go over what market research is. So I like to simplify it way down. It's almost an oversimplification, but basically you're trying to find out who do you sell to and who are your competitors. Those are the two main questions you're trying to ask when you're doing market research. So these both categories can get split into demographics. So the two broadest demographics of consumers are either people or business and industry. So if you're selling to people, you can figure out even more specific information, like what age ranges are you selling to, what are their income and spending habits, are they in families, etc. And then when it comes to business and industry, you could be in a business where you're a supplier to other organizations. So you'd want to know what your competitors would be in that market, the revenues and expenditures of those places you're trying to sell to, what products and services they offer, and some market trends for the industry you're in. All right, so once you know what you're looking for out of those two categories, you can even get more specific than that. Depending on what your business is, you might want to know how many 24 to 35-year-olds are in Thunder Bay, or where in Thunder Bay do people on average make the most money? What is the most affluent neighborhood? Or if you're looking to sell to other businesses, you can ask questions like how many coffee shops are in Thunder Bay, that sort of thing. Yeah, feel free, again, ask any questions in the chat at any point. So here are some good starting points for information services. So obviously Google is a great tool if you know how to use it right. So it's one of those things where you use Google just keep in mind that there's these SEO tools and ways that people can pay to have their website appear higher on Google. But it's always a great starting place. Um, but being in Thunder Bay, we're very lucky. We have organizations like the Paro Center. We have the CDC, which is the Center for Economic Development of the city, the Chamber of Commerce, Innovation Northwest, Thunder Bay Ventures, all these organizations that want to help small businesses like you succeed and do well. Then obviously there's great information that the city releases through reports and things of that nature. Similar with Statistics Canada, which we'll get more into later. And then obviously the Thunder Bay Public Library is always here to help you. And as well, if you're in a different place in the country, your public library will have some of these tools as well. There's one big source of information missing from this list, and that's you. So you as a business owner and entrepreneur already have a lot of information available to you that you might not have thought of looking that closely into, or you just have known it for so long it doesn't feel like useful information anymore. But there's some great information you probably already have. So these can be qualitative information, so things that are more word-based. So this is like customer feedback forms, social media comments, various trade show notes and records that you've collected from your time in the industry. And then there's quantitative data, which is like hard numbers. So sales reports, business expenses, and demographic information. So even if you haven't been working at the same business or you're doing your first independent business venture on your own, you do have probably some experience within that industry, or even in information from other jobs or places you've worked at that could be helpful in informing how you go forward and approach your market research. Does anybody have any questions so far? All right, I don't think I see anything in the chat, so I'll just keep on going. So yeah, again, here are some very simple starting points before we get right into the data. So websites and social media is a great place to gain an understanding of both individual like people, and also if you're selling to businesses or even like looking at your competitors, you can get their pricing for products and services, see how they're using and interacting with social media, what kind of feedback are they getting on similar products, even if the organization isn't in Thunder Bay, but it's in another city in Canada of the similar size. That's a great way to compare how that's doing in the market. So any professional associations that might be relevant to your industry. So as a librarian, organizations and individuals can sign up with the Ontario Library Association, and they do a huge conference every year, and then they do little workshops throughout the year that you can sign up for, and it's a really great way to get industry trends and get other information you might not have access to, and again, going through any records you've already had. All right, so now we'll go through some of the databases to help you get started with your market research. The first one we're going to go over is StatsCan. Has anybody used StatsCan before? Again, you can just use your hand. Oh, yeah, we got a hand already or in the chat. And if you have, like, what's your experience with StatsCan? Oh, I see another thumbs up. It's very polarizing.
From what I've used it, it's been excellent.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome to hear. A lot of people do find their website like a bit clunky and tricky to like find. And once you find it, you're like, amazing, but it's like a little bit of a needle in a haystack.
Oh, it's terrible. I know that much.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, does anyone help us?
Yeah, for sure. So Statistics Canada, for those of you who haven't used it before, is a national data collection. They have a bunch of products available, the most notable one being the Census of Canada. So all of the 2016 one is out and available. The 2021, they're rolling out the data right now. They're doing it in phases. So they've done, the basics have come out in terms of age, gender, and like the number of people. And then the more detailed surveys and information from the long form census are coming out later in the year. And then they also do custom surveys like the labor force survey, education and health surveys occasionally, and they have a bunch of socioeconomic data. So if there's anything particular to communities, especially if you're doing something related to like health or work, or you want to access people who have had higher education. That's a really great place to look, is StatsCan. And this is the most like helpful little phone number at the bottom here. So because of how hard it is to use Statistics Canada, there's this 1-800 number at the bottom. If you think there's something that Stats Canada would probably have that would help you out, you can give them a call or go to their website on their Stay Connected page, and they will help you find what you're looking for. It is important to note, though, with Statistics Canada, because it is a government agency, like regular citizens don't have access to all of the data that Stats Canada has, because some of it's protected under different forms of legislation. There's other information that you might be able to access, but for a fee that covers like finding fees and things like that. But most of what you'd want will be free and just freely available on their website. And then the next one that's super helpful that we had somebody, I think Elle mentioned in the chat earlier, is a market research survey. So this is your opportunity to directly ask questions to your customers about what you want to know. You can redo this as your business grows or changes because your customer base will change along with you. So there's always a great opportunity to redo that. If you've ever been to a big box store, you've gotten your receipt, they circled the survey at the bottom for a chance to win a bunch of money and gift cards. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get market research survey intake for them. And this is a great way to fill in the gaps left out of formal resources, because all the databases are great, but at the end of the day, people are like multifaceted and much more than just being an age, a gender, and making a certain amount of money. So this is how you get to know preferences. There's a lot of informal ways to do this too, like through social media. Like a lot of times you'll see on Instagram stories, people doing like, do you like this, if I was a Potter mug, let's say, in this glaze or that glaze? And then people just click on the poll right on their phone, so they don't have to go out of their way to get to the survey. So there is some like polling you can do in like sneaky kind of ways through social media like that. That doesn't feel like market research, but it is essentially what you're doing. But just know that you're like, not everybody who would buy from you would be on Instagram, so it shouldn't be your only method of doing market research, because you will inevitably leave some people out. All right, any questions before I move on to the next section?
None in the chat.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so we'll keep on going. So the first database we're actually going to do a tutorial of is the Info Canada database. So this has demographics about specific businesses within Canada. There's over 2.1 million businesses indexed through them and covers across Canada. So this includes, they get their information from like businesses' annual report, white pages, yellow pages, like various websites, utilities, and they also verify like individually over the phone with people. They update it once a year, and it has a lot of like advanced search things you can do. So like company name, keyword, business sizes, different industry codes that you can look for to get a sense of what your competitors could be or potential customers, depending on if you're being a supplier or selling directly to consumers. So with the Thunder Bay Public Library, you can access it while you're in the library or remotely with a library card and PIN number. And it's not up to date quite as fast as some of the ones we'll look at later. So let's just go through this tutorial. Can you guys see the new tab? It's like loading just about the library website.
We can see it.
Perfect, awesome. So to get to our databases, if you go to this red research tab here and then hit research again at the top, it will load up our page with databases. And if you click on this header image, it will, if you're at home, it'll prompt you to do your library card and PIN, but because I'm in the library right now, it will just automatically go to our list of databases. It's just in alphabetical order. We're looking for Info Canada, so that's under I, and we'll click it there. And now that it's loaded up, we want to search Canadian businesses. So we'll hit Start Search beside the Canada flag icon. So if there's a specific organization in town or business in town that's similar to the one you're starting, you can type directly in here the name of the business. Or what I like to do is do the advanced search option. So to start the advanced search, you just click on your first filter. So I always like to start with the city. So you select your province and type in Thunder Bay. And then when it moves into this column, that's when you know it's in there. So you can add multiple cities if you felt like it. Then I like to use the keyword. So this will search all of the industry classification codes. So using their example, if we wanted to do restaurants, and then hit search, it'll pull up all these results. So there's just general restaurants here, and then restaurant equipment. There's ice carvers, like it's very specific. So definitely the more specific you can make it, the better your results will be. See, even here, they have like German, American food, vegetarian, Portuguese, Peruvian. So there's all these different kind of restaurants that you have access to here. I'm just going to keep it on general restaurants so we get more results. And if we see this little floating box here and hit update count, we have two filters on. So it's Thunder Bay, and then it's filtered again by restaurants. We get 322, so we'll hit view results. And it'll give us a big list of all of the organizations they have information on. So if you see in this record type column, there's a U and a V, so unverified and verified. So that means we've found this place, we've gotten this information, we know it's accurate. So once you go here, you can export this whole list. So we have 13 pages though. It's just important to note that you have to do each page one by one. But if you click a bunch of records, you can then download it as like a Excel sheet or whatever. You can do a summary or you can do detailed view, which will give you all data so you can compare it on a bigger screen or print it out and look at it that way, however you want to look at it. But we can also look at the company records one by one. So as you can see, there's like A&W and stuff. So those are like corporate entities and like huge multinational chains, which like is a little bit hard to compare yourself to. So we will look at Bartalia because it's the On Deck Bar and Grill because it's like the first one that's like not a chain. So you can see the different industry codes that they fall into. So this can help you do a more advanced search later down the line based on these classification years. They have basic contact information here. They have business demographics, so you can get an understanding of like how many employees do they have, what do they make in terms of sales, credit ratings, how many locations do they have, basic information like that. Their management directory is on there, and then they have estimates of the annual expenses for different categories of the business, which is super helpful as well. The other cool thing is the competitors report and the nearby businesses. So if you're looking for a location in town, you're like interested to be like, I want to be on Cumberland Street too, you can look at what else is on Cumberland Street. But also the competitors report is really cool because it's other bars, food establishments in the downtown area that is in competition with On Deck. And then you can click through and get the same kind of record. So is there any questions about this database? Is there anything anybody wants to see specifically?
I was wondering, is that do we get asked if we want this published? Like if I'm starting a business, does this get published?
Well, a lot of the information is based on publicly available like records already. So if you have your business on yellow pages or white pages, that's how they start, and with the unverified ones. I feel like it's one of those things though where like you can see year first appeared as this company. So like 2007, I don't know how long On Deck's been around. So not every organization shows up right away. It's one of those things though where it's like they're usually using publicly available information that they then go and verify.
No, I think it's a great way to actually find other collaborators locally. Like if I'm
Yeah, that too. Yes. Super powerful to do that. Yeah. Are there any other questions about using the database or what you can and can't find in it? All right, I'm not seeing any. We can always go back later in the presentation, but I'll go back to the main presentation. So another database that could be helpful if you're in the Thunder Bay area is the Gateway to Northwestern Ontario History Database. So this is one that's owned and maintained by the library. So it's a bunch of local history photos from like the mid 1850s to present. So if you're opening a storefront in the Thunder Bay area and you want to see what was in that area before, you can literally type in the address and see if we have any pictures or news articles about that location from the past. So it's just a really cool way to root your business in history if you are doing a storefront like that. We also, any sort of city trends and stuff, we have all of the newspapers indexed from like the 1990s, I think pretty much all of them from even further back when we used to have like the News Chronicle and the Times Journal, like when there's two cities, like those are all in there as well to gain access to and see what was happening in the city, like in the 70s, 80s, etc., back into the past. All right, and the next database we're going to look at today, we'll do a tutorial of this one as well, is called Simply Analytics. So this one you can use your library card and PIN to access. You can use it from home or in the library. The thing to note though, if you're using it at home, is that there can only be 5 users using it at the same time. So if all of us on this call went on at once, one of us would be kicked off. So if that happens to you, just know that there's a 20-minute timer. So the max amount of time you'd have to wait is 20 minutes and then it'll kick you out. So you can, you know that you're not going to be waiting super long until you can get at it. So if you ever have trouble accessing it, that's probably why. It's never happened to me though in the 2 years I've worked here, so I don't think it's a huge issue. So this can get you information about both people as individuals and businesses. A lot of their information is based on the 2016 census, and because it's updating slowly with the 2021, but because StatsCan isn't done publishing all of 2021 yet, it will still be probably a few months before it's up to date as possible. But they have these other places of information of these very fancy like big data firms that do projections, estimates, and other ways of getting demographic information to like bolster what they have. So it has really cool reporting and mapping functions, and it's also updated annually. So I'll just go back to our database list. And if we go down to S for Simply Analytics, click on that. You can create an account if you want. So if you do run into that 20-minute timer, you'll still have to go through the library's website with your library card and PIN, then come here and create an account. But it's handy because you can save your work. It'll automatically save for you. You can organize it with different titles, things of that nature. And then you don't have to worry about losing anything you're working on. But today I'll just sign in as a guest, just so you see what it looks like blank without all of the settings, because I use it all the time. Without all of my settings. So it'll give you a little tutorial at the beginning, a little like most apps when you first download it, but I'm just going to click out of that for now. So you'll get this new project wizard. You'll start with a location that you'd like to analyze. You can pick anywhere in Canada, so we can do Thunder Bay. It's important to note here that see how there's like 4 options of Thunder Bay. It's divided largest to smallest by population. So Thunder Bay Unorganized Territory is all of the surrounding rural areas, which is low population, high land volume. Census metro area is, for example, the like smaller towns like Shunya or Pass Lake, those sorts of things that are nearby Thunder Bay, Murillo, rural but still close enough to the city. And then the city itself is the census subdivision, so we'll start with that one and hit next. Then it'll ask us to pick seed variables. I usually like to start with 2 just to make it easy. So today we'll start with the basics of population and households by income for the current year, and then we'll hit create project and it'll generate a map for us. Sorry, I'm just gonna get some water quick. Sorry about that. So as you can see, there's a map with Thunder Bay in the center. It's color coded with our legend here. And before we get too into it, I'm just gonna like show you around what we're actually looking at. So at the top, it is a little formula bar that says we're looking at this data, so total population of 2021 in Thunder Bay, sorted by census subdivision. So that's what the blocks of colors are, is the different census subdivisions. So we can edit this. So if we wanted to look at income instead of population, we can do the drop-down menu and it will automatically change that for us. And we're looking in Thunder Bay still. And if we want to see smaller than census subdivisions, we can go down to census tracts, which are like parts of neighborhoods, or we could even go even smaller with dissemination areas, which are usually 2 or 3 blocks. So we can get a lot of like detailed information with the smaller we go. You can also see there's the map legend over here. It'll tell you what you're looking at, and then the ranges in here. Also, so you know, you can edit these colors, like if you can't see red well, you can change it to blue, that sort of thing, to make it easier for you to read. Then over to the left-hand side here, we have our different data folders. So this tab, that's just the data tab. You can see popular data, different population, age, income, consumer behavior. So if you go to consumer behavior, it's what's the total and average spending in a certain area. So if we go to, let's say, pets, for example, we can go to average expenditure on pets per household. So it'll give you a breakdown now of like who's more likely to own pets. And it's always interesting to see that it usually lines up with people's income, not always, but a lot of the times the more income people have, the more money they're likely to spend on things like pets of that nature. So that will get you really interesting to see how things like that break down in the city. While you're in this mapping function, you can also search for businesses. So you can look for change. You can type in things like restaurant. You can browse business categories here, and then see if we wanted to do like, let's say arts and entertainment, go to museums, and then we'll see what shows up. And all these orange little dots will show up with the different museums in town. So if you're also looking for a storefront one day, this is a cool way to see if you're close or far from other organizations that are similar. Is there any questions about this feature before we move on to the next one?
Does that have the nonprofit or medical, like hospital business concepts, like a police?
Oh, we can go for.
Oh, this is an NGO list.
Okay. Oh, gotcha. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so if I'm marketing to like public servants, really. Maybe.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good question.
I mean, normally, like, I like this a lot, Amy, because normally I just, yellow pages one at a time.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there's, I guess just keep that in mind as we go through.
Yeah.
I'll play around on it myself too.
Yeah, so there is like healthcare and social assistance. So it's like different physicians, dentists,
Cool,
healthcare practitioners. So that information is there just in like the lower categories. Yeah, so there's also on all of these a keyword search. So if you type in, I want dentist specifically, you could type in dentist and it'd pop up everything to do with like dentists, from like actual dentist office to like dentist tool manufacturers and everything related to the whole dentistry industry. That answers your question?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Perfect. So there's a whole bunch of reports in Simply Analytics we can go through. We all have a bunch on the left or right hand side here, sorry. So the first one we'll go through that's not the map is the quick report feature. So this will give a demographic overview of Thunder Bay and Canada and compare them side by side for you. So if you wanted to compare Thunder Bay to Ontario in Canada, we can type in Ontario to the location bar. So now we can look at the demographics for Thunder Bay and Ontario and Canada all in a row. Again, you can export these just like the other one into a spreadsheet so you can use it for future access, but it's divided age, gender, population, visible minority status, anything you could think of in terms of just basic census information is in here. And we also have a comparison table option, which is super cool. So the 2 seed variables we started with earlier are here. We have Thunder Bay and Canada at the top. We can add more cities or locations. So we can add the province again if we wanted to. Just to compare Thunder Bay to Ontario to Canada, we can add other cities like Toronto, if I knew how to spell. So we can compare Thunder Bay to Toronto to Ontario to Canada. So if you're just came to Thunder Bay from another city and wanted to see how Thunder Bay stacks up to the city you came from, or vice versa, you can do it that way. We can also add different data variables. So if we wanted to learn more about spending habits across these different places, we can do that as well. So if we do entertainment and leisure, and then we can do average household expenditures on recreation, or I just see it's so specific in some places. See, like portable audio equipment, like it gets more and more narrow the more you scroll down. There's even still cassettes, DVDs, that sort of thing. Rental of video media is still in here, so a lot of it is like older. We can also look at food, which is always really interesting to see for spending. So there's a bunch of averages. So total food expenditure per household, so the average across households. Then it's specific, like bakery products. What do people spend on bakery products? So we can look at all of these regions, comparing all of the spending habits across the board, which is super interesting. Also, this one is like bakery products for, so all of Thunder Bay annually spends this huge amount altogether. That's not one house. Yeah, so that's just what to be careful of when you're clicking through. There's the averages and then the totals. So totals is what does this region spend on altogether in a year, and the averages is an estimate of how much that number divided by the amount of households, if that makes sense. Any questions about the comparison report tool? I'm not seeing anything in the chat either. So there's 2 more we're going to go through today. There's the ranking table, so it is what it sounds like. You can look at the top 20 census tracts in Thunder Bay and then sorted by, we can sort it by household income. So it's doing low to high, and if we wanted to be like, okay, what's the census tract, because who knows these numbers off the top of their head, you can click on this and then hit create map, and it will pull up the area that has the highest average household income and outline it in the yellow here. So this is like just south of the Cam River. So I think it's like, I'm not super familiar with this area, but I think it's like Mount Forest Boulevard and all those big homes out that way. And that kind of makes sense because you're close to the city, but still getting like privacy of the country in this area. And there's a lot of very fancy homes out there. So if we go back to our ranking table, we can obviously do the same with the opposite, and we can add different data points like we were earlier. So anything in these folders you can add, sort by that way. And then if you're interested on seeing what that census tract is, you can click on the data you're looking at and then actually go see it on the map to understand where it is better. Any questions on this one? Oh, okay, so the last one we'll go through today is the business report. So the one we're looking at, so this is from earlier when we were looking at museums. So we're looking at museums in Thunder Bay. It's giving us a chart with the name of the museum, their address, kind of like Info Canada. Again, you can like export these. It also has like total employees, year started, things like that. If we go to something that's not, you can browse business categories again, do something that's like a larger sector, healthcare, new office of physicians. Let's do mental health specialists. Oh, 0 results. So sometimes you get so specific that you don't have anything in there. Let's see if there's, I usually like to do the food-based ones. So we'll go restaurants. So full service restaurants, let's take a look at those just to see, compare between when we did this in Info Canada versus here. So it'll have the company's like legal name, which is a bunch of numbers, Ontario Limited, then the actual business name in English as people know, then contact information, all of that. And then you can sort this table by sales volume, sort large to small. Then you can find out, okay, so the Best Western on the highway there makes a lot of money in terms of food, probably catering events, weddings, that sort of things. And it's a really interesting way to compare businesses in your sector. So is there any questions about this business table specifically?
Not in the chat.
Oh, there's one in the chat?
Not in the chat, sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, so also before we totally leave the Simply Analytics demonstration, if you click New View here, you can see all of the types of reports you can do. I just went over the basic ones because we unfortunately don't have enough time to go through every single one of these because there's a lot. But there are a lot of really great stuff to play around with in here. All right, so I'll go back to the presentation. All right, so another library resource we have here in Thunder Bay is a database called Grant Connect. So it'll help you look for funding opportunities. It's literally just you can type in what you're working on, things like that, and see if there's any applicable grants from either the government or places like the MasterCard Foundation or other private companies that give out grants, like TELUS, Rogers, all of those big kind of tech companies do a lot of grants in that way. So that's a great place to go for if you're looking on funding for a specific project. And we always have more information on our website. So some final tips is just make sure you give yourself a lot of time. You're going to have to decide where like the good enough line lies. You can market research till you're blue in the face, but that could take up all of your time. You don't need to let it take up all of your time. And then focus on getting to know your market as like people with multifaceted lives, same with like organizations with multifaceted lives too. And you'll have to be creative and flexible with the information you're finding because most of what you want is out there, but statistics can only tell you part of the picture. It's that qualitative data and the customer feedback that will really help you fill in those gaps. And then feel free to ask for help from places like the Power Center, there's the CDC, us at the library, there's all of these great organizations in town that are here to help small businesses like you thrive and survive. Again, my name is Amy Ongaro. This is my contact information. If you want more information on how to use a specific database, or if you're not in Thunder Bay and you want to figure out how to get access to some of these tools, I can help you do that as well. Yeah, and does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free. You could unmute yourself and ask any questions. And if you want to still use a text chat, you could do that as well. And they might have some questions after that they could just reach out to you.
Yes,
and,
yeah, feel free to email me with any questions or phone me with any questions. I'm always happy to chat.
Elle said, wow, this was very informative. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, Lori, and thank you all for coming.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks very much, Amy. We really appreciate it. And just to know that, all this stuff is available for, help with the businesses and stuff like that. So thank you. And yeah, if nobody else has any questions, I just want to thank you all for coming. And just oh yeah, for sure. Charlotte, go ahead.
Do I have 20 more minutes of your time? Like seriously, I'm not in any rush. The grant concept, that's entirely new. So I'm an engineering and manufacturing, and so I'm going to start my own consulting business. I'm kind of curious about the grant, like how it's how do we use that granting? Is it used to connect a network also? So I kind of think of myself, hey, I'm getting a grant, but behind that is an organization that's clearly interested, right, in the direction and putting out grants. So, I mean, is that a process that is often, I don't know, am I leveraging grant work?
Yeah, so that's like basically you have to find, like, that database is used, you find a grant and then apply for it. And then if you're the successful candidate, they'll have different rules for how you can and cannot use that money. Sometimes there's rules even before you apply, like you have to be a business or a nonprofit that meets certain criteria. So it really depends on the restrictions around the grant itself. So the Grant Connect database is just finding grants that are open right now that you can then apply for.
Because it actually is strategic in that if there's a lot of grant, like I could be a nonprofit, right? And if there's a huge grant funding in that direction, like how do I kind of distinguish where that support is? Like it might be more strategic for me to be a nonprofit, considering the market. Like how do I know what's available? Like are people mostly grants are going towards nonprofit and non-NGOs, or
Yeah,
or break a business really having that access to extra cash?
yeah, so it really depends again on like the funders' requirements and also being a business versus being a nonprofit. That's not really a question I'm qualified in like properly answering for you, because there is different tax requirements and having a board and all these other things that go into being an NGO. That I can't really advise you on. That's like totally your call and whatever you think is best for your business.
I might just do market research on grant availability.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely worth going in there and checking out to see what the requirements for grants are that are available, because some are available for private businesses, some aren't. Yeah.
I know certainly around new entrepreneurial that it's kind of generically, we want you to engage in this. So yeah, here's some support money. But yeah, I guess looking further down the road.
Yeah.
No, that's great.
And Charlotte, are you working? I can't remember were you working with a business counselor at Carol?
Yeah, I have Chantel Fraser.
Okay, yeah. So she might have some insight on some other ones that are available as well too. So yeah, but for sure. But if anybody else doesn't have any other questions, I just want to say thanks again for joining us today, and thanks Amy for coming in and presenting. Really appreciate it.
Me.
Yeah, and we look forward to having you again sometime soon. And just to let everybody know, heads up for next week is our circle information session. So if you're interested in learning more about the Paro circles and what they do, that's a great presentation to come to. And if you have any other questions, please feel free. You could reach out to me, and yeah, or any ideas on other workshops that you'd like to see come the fall. I'd be happy to hear any suggestions. So anyways, my email is makingadiference@paro.ca. So thanks everybody, and thanks again, Amy, and wish everybody a great day.
Thanks,
Thank
Amy.
you. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye.